Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into a topic that really sparks debate. Electric cars versus hybrids. Which one's actually better for the environment? It gets especially interesting, maybe even a bit confusing, when you hear, a really big name in the car world making claims that seem to, well, contradict what a lot of scientists are saying. Okay, let's unpack this for you.
Absolutely. Our mission today is to dig into the science, the real environmental impact of EVs and hybrids. And crucially, we want to understand why some influential people, maybe even big company CEOs, might say controversial things. Do their claims actually stack up against the data?
Right, let's get straight to it. The big point of tension, the thing you hear all the time, is that maybe electric cars aren't quite as green as we think.
Yeah.
Especially early on, people ask, what about making those huge batteries? Isn't that bad?
And that's a fair question. We have to acknowledge it. Scientifically speaking, yes, EVs do have a bigger environmental footprint right at the start during production. It's mainly down to the batteries. Manufacturing them is energy intensive, uses materials like lithium, nickel, copper. Extracting and processing all that takes a toll.
Okay, so there's that upfront environmental cost. But then the car gets built, it's on the road, and the story changes completely, doesn't it? Because that's when you get the huge plus, zero emissions from the tailpipe, nothing coming out as you drive.
Exactly. And that brings us to this idea of the break-even point. There's a study, I think, by the German Engineers Association, VDI, that showed this pretty clearly. An EV typically needs to drive about 90,000 kilometers before its overall emissions match a traditional gasoline car. So those higher production emissions, they get balanced out over time because the car itself isn't polluting as it drives.
90,000 kilometers. That's quite a long way to break even. But I guess the real story depends on more than just the car, right? Like, where's the electricity coming from?
You've nailed it. That's such a critical point. The actual environmental win from an EV, it depends massively on how clean the electricity is that you charge it with. If your power comes mostly from renewables, solar, wind, then the benefit is huge. But if your grid relies heavily on, say, coal or natural gas, well, that benefit shrinks. What's fascinating here is just how much that energy source matters.
Which takes us to the big question, the why. Why would someone really influential, maybe a CEO of a huge car company, publicly cast doubt on going all electric too quickly? It seems like they're maybe ignoring the long-term
And
benefits.
if we try to connect the dots, it's not always about ignoring things. Sometimes these public statements are meant to influence, public opinion or maybe lawmakers or even industry strategy. They might base their arguments on, shall we say, selective data, perhaps focusing only on a really dirty energy mix scenario or assuming cars don't last very long. And yeah, sometimes self-interest can play a role. If a company has invested heavily in, say, hybrid tech, they might want to slow down the full electric shift, protect those investments.
Ah, okay, so it might not be that the information is wrong exactly, but maybe it's incomplete or possibly even outdated considering how fast things are changing.
That's a very real possibility. Battery technology, how they're made. It's improving incredibly fast. Seriously, leaps and bounds. The environmental impact of production is constantly getting smaller. So, a claim based on data from even just a few years ago might be, well, pretty irrelevant today. This raises an important question for all of us, doesn't it? When you hear a really strong claim, you've got to ask, what's the actual data behind it? What's the full context? Because the scientific consensus right now, generally speaking, is this. Yes, it's complicated and things are always evolving, but when you look at the entire life cycle of the car and assume the energy grid keeps getting cleaner, which it is, then electric cars usually come out ahead as the more sustainable option compared to hybrids or traditional gas cars. Those influential counter-arguments. They often seem to stem from a partial view, specific company interest, or just picking the data that fits a narrative.
So, what's the takeaway here for you listening? I think it's this. The next time you hear a big, bold claim from someone important about EVs or hybrids, pause for a second. Remember to think about the whole picture production, driving, electricity source, the car's lifespan. Consider the context. Don't just react to the headline and maybe ask yourself, whose interests might this particular story serve? If you found this deep dive helpful, if it sheds some light, do make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We'll keep bringing you insights like this to help you cut through the noise and really understand what's going on.